Hey everybody, how's everybody doing today? Welcome to my photography chat live stream where we come together and talk about photography. And as always, I like to leave it as an open Q&A and let the audience drive the conversation. I'm so sorry for starting late. I thought I set it for 9:30 and I was doing some stuff this morning. And then I looked and I said, oh crap, it's 9 o'clock. But anyhow, thanks for joining me today. And if you have any particular topics, questions that you want to talk about, again, I'll do my best to answer them or give you my opinion. And let me just go into the chat section. I see, oh, Darko's here. Already had a lot of comments there. I'll come back to those. Good morning. And Roger, good to see you. Jeff, as always, good to see you. And let's see, Erna, good to see you. And let's see, Paul and Larry and Marcia, Robert, good to see you guys. So let me go ahead, and Eric, good to see you. Good morning. So Darko says, good morning. And I had a weird thing happen using AI to edit a composite image. When the AI finished replacing the background on my reference image, it had a signature on the bottom that was not mine. That's interesting. I don't know what AI engine you were using, but it's kind of widely known. They kind of just pull from, whatever is online. And it may have just pulled somebody else's signature and incorporated that. I don't know. And note that I didn't use that version to edit, not liking AI scraping the internet and possibly stealing other artwork for use on my requested edit. So I provided AI both images for the next try. So I would assume AI will now have both images. Someone else could use them. What do I think? I don't know. I do enjoy the speed of AI, but I feel artists doing photo composites should still know how to do it manually through Photoshop. I use CS6PS exclusively and create my edits. Yeah, so I'd have to kind of get a whole idea of your workflow to kind of give you an opinion there. Uh, but yeah, like you said, the AI is known to just scrape, whatever is online. Copyright doesn't seem to matter. And but I do agree with your point that it's good to know the fundamentals behind editing photos, right? Particularly if you're going to be doing compositing and replacing backgrounds and things like that, which I've done time to time, not very often, but yeah, that's one of the reasons I really don't like using AI uh, in my photo editing, so to speak. I mean, there's always hints of AI in our images, particularly like I use a lot of noise reduction or AI noise reduction, but that's a little bit different. It's trying to reproduce exactly what you presented. And, when you're just creating backgrounds through prompts and things, that's when it sort of digs into its database of images to pull from to try to derive an image based on your prompt. And yeah, yeah, it's not a great way to do editing, in my opinion. The best way is really do as much as you can in camera and then learn how to do layering and subject detection and swap things out. That's really, I have no problem with people, either making or buying backgrounds uh, and incorporating those. But beyond that, it can be a little tricky whether or not your image is truly original or not when you're using AI. And you still also need fieldcraft and wildlife photography to get a usable BIF, not just expecting AI to correct bad frames. Yep. And good morning, Roger. And just another note of interest, Dixie Dixon is now Canon ambassador. She left Nikon. Okay. I'm not familiar with Nikon ambassadors, but Canon makes a good system. Nikon makes a good system. Who knows why she switched? Uh, most likely she just liked the Canon, something about the Canon, but I don't know what kind of photographer she is. If she's a wildlife photographer, I don't really see any reason to switch from Nikon because they have a really awesome lineup of lenses and cameras to do wildlife. And good morning, Jeff. And Roger says, thanks for the duck photo edit on Friday. After seeing what the optics module sharpening and denoise can do, I'm going to force myself to use the 75 to 300 over my 100 to 400. Yeah, take it out. That 75 to 300 can do really amazing shots in combination with the DxO optics module. It's really a, DxO, in my opinion, is the best photo raw editor out there, specifically Photolab, but also the DxO Pure Raw can pre-process the raw images applying the optics modules, and it just does an amazing job. And let's see, that's for Jeff. Darko says good morning. And good morning, David. Good to see you. And Jeff says stunning weather here in the southeast. Southeast UK, very sunny, 29 Celsius. Looks like it's going to be last a while. That's nice. It's the opposite here. It was like 52 degrees this morning and it's raining. It's really dark and gloomy. And good morning, Erna. And Erna says, who would I contact regarding suggestions for OM1 Mark III? Like if I desire certain specifications, modifications to be added or removed. Geez, I don't know. I've never sent in recommendations myself. Because it's it's a little bit too late in the process once we start thinking about. I think the best time to submit suggestions is right after the Mark II came out, right? Because that's when they start to develop the Mark III if they hadn't started already. A lot of product cycles, not just in cameras, but a lot of times they'll release something, but they've already started working on the next generation or the generation after that. And you should always be suggesting things on a continuous basis, but who to submit it to, there should be something on their website to submit recommendations, but I don't know. But I do know they watch live streams like mine and other live streams, like when the OM1 Mark II came out, there was a lot of reviews, the OM3. And if you put comments down into the more popular videos, I'm sure they'll see those as well. And Larry, good to see you. And good morning, Marcia. Robert, good to see you. Let's see. This chat window is just all over the place today, as always. Oh, Anthony's here. Good to see you. And Anthony, I did put up the poll that you had requested. Let me pull that up real quick. So Anthony said, do you remember that, basically wanted to know if people would be interested in the XA1, like a digital version of that. And for reference, this is the XA1. There's a little clamshell camera, very pocketable. I still haven't found mine, but if we would get an XA camera, and I kind of posed it a couple of different ways. Said yes, even at $1,600, because that's just my guess what it would cost. Yes, but it needs to be closer to $1,000. So I should have said $1,000 or less, right? But maybe 25%, and then no, 45%. So let's just say half the people will not buy a camera like this. 102 votes, it's a very small sample. And there's some comments here. If weather sealed, then I would buy that instead of a Ricoh. If not sealed, I'll stick to the TG8. Yep. And if it were an XA rangefinder with aperture priority, then maybe, but not for 1500, right? So maybe 1000, right? And then JP says he'd rather have it similar to the Trip 35, which is slightly larger camera and small, simple to use, pocket style for life moments, but 1600 would be too pricey. Another option would be a TG8 with 1-inch sensor. And XMeta says it'll be very hard to find customers for that. They should rather rework the XZ2 or the OM-XZ3 or make something similar, compact, slightly larger sensor, maybe even 1-inch, and something fast with the 24 to 100 weather sealed. So really, it's kind of what JP was saying, a TG8 with a 1-inch sensor, right? So it would have to be bulkier, but and then since I have 3 cameras and 1 pair of hands and too much, oh my God, I ran into that this morning, Peter. Man, I was trying to compare all these different cameras and I carried them all out like this. And let's see. And Waddy says, I'm just not a fixed lens guy. And Gordon says, if a zoom lens, yes, albeit this would be tempting. The Sony Arx 107 is pocketable, albeit 1-inch sensor, maybe not possible with M43. So, there you have it. I think, yeah, I'm kind of with one of the comments there where it would be a hard sell. Unless it was well under $1,000, and it had to be very, very limited. So we're talking about a compact camera with a micro four thirds sensor, something like the GM1 was originally, right? So it's kind of been done already. The GM1 would be something similar to the XA1, but maybe you want the clamshell part of it where it sort of slides open and closed to protect the lens, and possibly that could be an add-on, but it would make the camera bulkier. So it's a tough call. If it was a fixed lens, say 35 millimeter with a micro four thirds sensor in that size, but no IBIS, I mean, they wouldn't be able to put IBIS in it. It would have some, you know, thermal management issues being that small. It would be tough, and you couldn't make it like totally out of plastic. Well, I guess you could, but yeah, I don't think it would do too well personally. And, you know, with half the people already saying they're not going to buy one, uh, I would say it's probably not going to happen. Okay, let's see. And Marcia says, trying to connect OM1 to OI share. Phone says that it's connecting to Wi-Fi, but wheel keeps turning. What am I doing wrong? So, first I would try restarting your phone. Make sure Bluetooth is on, Wi-Fi is on, and then I would delete the if the OI share is already registered in OM1 previously, I would delete that and then re-register it using the barcode. And then on your phone, make sure it's not in airplane mode or something, right? Like I said, make sure Bluetooth and Wi-Fi are on. Maybe turn them on and off again, like go into airplane mode, then come back out, and then read the barcode off the camera and re-register the OM1, and that should fix it. And John is here. Good to see you. And the great Vanzini, good morning. John says, have been sweating up in my new desert sand. Cool. Oh, yeah, the desert sand is pretty nice. It's just, every time I have an opportunity to buy one, I never pull the trigger. But I want one, but yeah. Let's see. And then JP has some tips here about putting the phone relative to the camera, bring it closer to the camera and then try a whole new session with OI Share to connect to a new device. So yeah, but I would try also, like I said, doing a full restart on your phone. Uh, you know, I have my Android phone. I have it set to automatically restart every Monday. You know, it just doesn't hurt. And then some more tips from Roger about VPN. Uh, and Thomas is here. Good to see you. Checking in from Decatur, Georgia, where there's light rain at 21C. Yeah, I think I'm a little below 21C here. I don't know what Celsius is. I'm at 50, 58 degrees now since I checked this morning. Let's see. And Heather says anything you upload to a chatbot becomes available for that chatbot to use for anyone else. It's now in chatbot's library. Okay. Rob, seriously with the ads, they're too much already. You know, I have them turned down to the lowest setting. You know, I'm not going to turn them off, but I have it set to low. I can't do much more than that. And let's see. Did I get the L10 yet? Looking forward to it. No, I think it's supposed to be sent out around June 17th. So I'll get mine, you know, shortly thereafter. Hopefully sooner than later, but I think June 17th is when they expect to ship it. And I'll let everyone know when I get it. And good morning, Sheree. Good to see you. Yeah, we need some more sunshine here, that's for sure. Roger says high res shot mode work on all Olympus lenses. Far as I know, yeah. I've used it on kit lenses and they come out fantastic, particularly the 14 to 42 easy. No ads, but then again, 99 cents per month. Subscribe to Rob Chan. Oh, thanks. And good morning, Robert. Good to see you. And what's the oldest point and shoot in your fleet? Oh, it's going to be my Fujifilm X2700, I believe it was called. Although it has died. The oldest working is my Fujifilm. What was it called? The XF something. I'll go get it. I know where it is. Hey. See. This is my oldest. Oh, the MX 2700. Actually, this one still works. It's the other one that kind of broke. I don't know where that one is. I love this one. This is the Olympus something. I forget the name of it. This has a 300 millimeter equivalent zoom on it, and it just reminds me of the 1980s the Cylons from Battlestar Galactica. This is a cool little camera. It has a lot of stuff in it. That's my oldest one. I got a bunch more in here. Since you know, these are cameras I don't really use anymore, so I just kind of put them in a box. What is this? Here's a Kodak. This has been revived. You can still buy this one. This one's called a C513, but they have you know, they have these modern and looks exactly like this. Although I hear they're not very good. So yeah, that's my oldest one. Okay. And thought on the new 100 to 400 f4.5. I really want one before winter. I think you mean the 150 to 400. That's an f4.5. And yeah, if you can afford it, definitely get one. It's amazing. I've shot with it a few times, and the images are stellar. Um, and then with the 1.25x teleconverter, you can get a 500 millimeter focal length out of that, which is an equivalent of 1,000. But then you can throw another 1.4 teleconverter on top of that if you want. But it's not just the reach, because you know we have the 200 to or the 100 to 600 now, right? Is the optics are just superior in every way, and the rendering from that lens is amazing. You know, they just come out beautiful. And one of my favorite shots I ever took with it, I think I have it printed right behind me. I'll show you. This is one of my favorite images ever, um, that I took using the 150 to 400, and it's just gorgeous. I've been meaning to frame that thing. It's one of my favorite shots. But yeah, so the optics are superior. It has it also has super fast motors in it, autofocusing motors. So you'll get amazing performance in tracking birds, whether they're coming towards you or, you know, on the same focal plane. And yeah, that's my dream lens. When I go out in the field and I see people with them all the time, I'm like, you lucky, you guys are lucky. Good to have. Good point. I have an X100T. Don't need another fixed lens camera. Yes. So the difference though with the L10 is that um, it has a zoom lens 25 to 75. So I'm not a big fan of fixed lens cameras. Meaning, let me rephrase that, fixed focal length cameras, right? I really want the ability to zoom in and out. And good morning, Heather from Mexico Beach, Florida. Perfect beach weather. Yeah, I'm so jealous. And I'm hoping you're getting the special edition L10. That's probably the one reason I buy it, for its color. Actually, I don't care for that champagne color personally. Uh, yeah, I like black or like silver, and I just couldn't decide between getting all black or getting it in the silver top. But ultimately I went with silver, because my LX100 and my Deluxe 8 are both all black. So I said, well, let me get the L10 in silver. And you know, Richard Wong published a review this morning that was excellent. Uh, so let me find that real quick. That was an excellent review on the L10. I'll put a link to it here in the stream. But it's this video here. And he puts the LX100 right next to the L10, and you can see, yeah, it is pretty big compared to the LX100. But not that big. It's smaller than an OM3. Uh, I think he even put it next to an OM3, if I recall. It is smaller than an OM3. It's obviously smaller than a Leica, and um, but it is bigger than the LX100 too. So this was a really good review. I'll put this in the link. Or I'll put the link in the chat section here. Okay. And I think YouTube broadcasters need to take accountability for their behavior on the platform. Um, well, I guess the accountability is kind of automatic. It's how many subscribers do you get? How many views do you get on a video? I guess if that's where you're going, I'm not sure. It says I'm a member but still have ads. Yep. Uh, really, the only way to avoid ads is if you pay YouTube directly. They're $10 a month. And all of my Fuji bridge cams eventually went wonky. Mostly they started using batteries faster and faster. Okay. Let me think. I do have one Fuji bridge cam. I don't use it very much though. But it used AA batteries. YouTube will resume where you left off, so all good. You won't miss anything. Okay. I never really paid attention. When the ads come on, I kind of tune out a little bit myself. But that's good to know. And then YouTube Premium. Yep, YouTube Premium, whatever that costs, like $10 a month, I think. I've been thinking about getting it myself because I watch YouTube more than anything else I have. I have Netflix and Prime, and then and that's it. Netflix, I pay for ads, meaning I pay the $7.99 or is it $8.99, something like that per month. So I get ads on my Netflix because I just don't want to spend the extra $10 to not get ads. And then the ads on YouTube, when I watch on my laptop or computer, the ads are a little bit leaner, meaning I don't get like these 1 minute, 2 minute ads, they're usually 15 seconds or so. But whenever I watch YouTube on my television, I get hit with like a 1 minute ad up front, then every few minutes from there, it's a little rough. And I think YouTube watchers should not complain about ads when they're watching the videos for free. And Heather says, I agree. But again, if you watch YouTube on various browsers, there are no ads. So I've heard. And Spiral Action says, Rob provides hours of free content a week as well as technical assistance, thousands of people well within rights to accrue some revenue. A little bit. It's so small. I tried for 2 months running my live stream with 0 ads. And yeah, it basically anything I earned and just asked for donations, right? And yeah, it didn't work out too well. I ended up making, revenue went down almost half from that, the little bit that it is. I mean, seriously, it's like maybe $500 a month total is what all I make from the live streams and the 500 plus videos that I have combined. It's so little. Uh, so, and that's, it is what it is anyway. Wow, it looks like something people do in post-production. Okay, I'm not sure what you're referring to. Oh, maybe the shot that I just showed. Yeah, that was a pretty good shot. But thank you. The only way I know to get rid of YouTube ads is to buy a subscription. Yep. And good morning, Marco. Good to see you. We need to talk about that router. I think you mentioned you might have a router I could get from you, but that's cool. And Brian James did a good review of the faux camera. Yes, that was hilarious. Brian James is awesome. And man, reviewers for the L10 got grilled in the audience defense when you're using words like "this is it" followed by "in my opinion." I also lose interest. Hate to say there were plenty of Micro Four Third reviewers I hit unsubscribe to. Felt like it was a shill fest. Well, you know, basically, when they got invited to Japan for 4 days, and they got the camera for free. Is what I understand. Plus, some of the expenses, right, of some of the meals and things. So it's easily a few $1,000s in value there to the reviewer. In addition to that, any content they make from there. So from a business standpoint, it may or may not make sense for to do it. Uh, but it's a pretty attractive offer, particularly if they sent me an offer. I would probably do the same. I'd probably go there, but I don't know if I would. The challenge is did they have to crank out a review or a preview within the few days that they had the camera, right? Some people did it same day, others waited a day or two, but a lot of people, most people were able to crank out a preview on launch day, right? And every one of them put themselves in that position by choice, right? And the I think my opinion is that if because there's some controversy about Panasonic in this respect, where if you say anything bad about the camera, right, you'll never get a call back from them or invited again, right? And some people say that's not the case. They can say whatever they want. And that's true, right? Typically, you don't have anything but an NDA where you can't disclose it before the launch date, but typically they don't tell you what to say, right? However, uh, so that would imply you can say whatever you want, but it's not without consequences, in my opinion. And I base this off two people. One we're familiar with, Robin Wong. You can see he said something about one of their cameras, and he got this long letter from Panasonic about, defending their camera. And I can't remember exactly what it was about or what camera it was. It's probably the S9, but you know, they're not going to call Robin ever to Robin Wong, that is, to review any of their cameras. And if you look around, um, tennis, I don't see a lot of people that aren't already fans of Micro Four Thirds getting the L10, right? Most of the people that got the L10 generally were, already had positive things about Micro Four Thirds. They didn't have anything against Micro Four Thirds. But anyway, so they're a little bit selective in who they ask to come, but their marketing in general is a little rough. They, to invite everybody out there and then put pressure on them to release a preview on launch day is not the right way to really market a camera. OM Systems, when they launched the OM3, uh, I had almost 5 weeks with that camera, and it was killing me. Not to tell you guys I had it for 5 weeks. It was killing me. But, I had it for at least 4, if not closer to 5 weeks. And then I didn't do a review, right, on the camera, and I barely talked about the 2 lenses they sent me. But, I did 3 live streams, open Q&A, right, on the camera. And that was it. I talked about what I liked about the camera during the streams, but or how much I liked the camera, but uh, I didn't do like a review saying this is the best camera ever. I said, if you guys have any questions about the camera, I can show you a few things it can do. And we went from there. And then I also started a forum on the MU43 forum with an open Q&A there, and that was a pretty popular thread at the time. And I'll probably do something similar with the L10. I won't do like a 10-minute, 20-minute video review on it. I'll just bring it into the live stream. You guys can ask me whatever you want, because by that time, anything that can be said about the camera has been said. But you might still have some questions, right, that weren't answered, and that's something I can do uh, live, right? So that's probably what I'll do. But yeah, the all of our friends, Emily did a review, a preview on it. She's going to come out with a more in-depth review later. And in her defense, okay, she is so enthusiastic about cameras, uh, you know, and loves cameras. And I don't hold anything against her of anything she said in her preview. I really liked her preview and how excited she was about the camera. And and she kind of hit the major points of what the camera is. But you rarely hear her talk about a camera in a negative way. She'll talk about some shortcomings, right? Like it's limited this way, it can't do this, but she doesn't like jump on it and say, this really sucks, it can't do this. You'll never hear her say something like that. You know what I mean? Um, she just loves cameras and gets excited. I wish I had her same enthusiasm online, or like her. Uh, and then I watched Robin Wong's live stream the other day, and he was pretty hard on it, right? But he was very specific to what he didn't like about it, and that's great. That's why people watch Robin Wong, is because he doesn't hold back. He tells you what he really thinks, and and that's Robin. And we all have different personalities and different takes on gear. The fact that it crops in, like, that was kind of a big deal for Robin. That doesn't bother me, that it crops in a little. Uh, I agree. I really wish Panasonic had made a little effort in making a new lens for the L10. I think that was really the weakest part, in my opinion. They're just recycling the lens from the LX100. Maybe they did some tweaks to the coatings. I don't know. They did some tweaks to it, maybe. I'll get a feel for it when it comes in, if I can really feel any difference. But I'd have been content with like an f 2.8 to f4 variable zoom. Just go up a stop, make it a little slower lens so it can stay compact, but still reasonably fast enough, right? Between 2.8 and f4 is more than enough light for most things. I mean, I shoot at f4, f5.6 all the time. So I'd have been content with a 2.8 to f4 that would cover the entire image circle of the sensor, so they didn't have to crop in, because the lens that comes on the LX100 and the L10 doesn't produce a large enough or wide enough image circle to cover the entire sensor. Hence, that's why it's cropped in a little bit. And then they put this aspect ratio thing. And I agree with Robin. That's kind of silly. I don't get the whole cropping switch. The little switch on the top here. I have it. I have both cameras right here, actually. Yeah, I don't get this little switch here. Where it um you change the aspect ratio 1:1, 16:9, things like that. But I'll show you a couple of pictures I took this morning with these two cameras. Okay. So, and that was a major contention that Robin Wong had, was that, and I agree with that. It's not a deal breaker for me. I'm fine. I think this camera lens combination produces beautiful images. Uh, but he doesn't like the lens, and that's okay. And there were some other things like no IBIS. Uh, Again, not a deal breaker for me. I'm perfectly fine with the lens stabilization. Richard Wong said that he got 3 to 4 stops of image stabilization in photos for uh, in the L10, and that's adequate. Oh, is there a Sony 100 to 400 f4.5? Maybe there is. I'm not familiar with that lens though. But that lens, it's a 100 to 400. Oh, that's right. We talked a little bit about the 100 to 400 f4.5. If I remember, was about the same size as the 150 to 400 from OM Systems, but the OM System ones has a 1.25 teleconverter built in on top of that. But the 100 to 400 was like half the price. So yeah, that's pretty amazing. I mean, I don't know how good the lens is, but I'm sure it's fabulous. I rarely change aspect ratio on my Panny Z, something or other. Yeah. Yeah, I rarely change aspect ratio in camera. I'll do it in post a lot, but not so much in camera. The top YouTubers earn their subs with hard work and talent, so they deserve their perks. Panasonic need to get their product in front of as many eyes as possible. Sure. I mean, like I said, I agree with that part. They need to get the camera out there and get exposure, but the way they went about it by bringing people 3-4 days out uh, before it actually launches, that doesn't make sense to me. They should have really, and I guess they're trying to control the leaks. Uh, but so what if there's a leak on the camera 4 or 5 weeks before it's released? I mean, in the scheme of things, in the life of a photographer, I mean, what's 4 or 5 weeks, right? Well, I don't think we really care. Uh, and I don't think the company should care that an L10 is coming out 4 or 5 weeks. You know, if a leak comes out 4 or 5 weeks before, that's the only reason I can think that they may have tried to put such a tight window between when they had their event for all these creators versus when it was released. Uh, you know, they want to try to minimize the leaks. And granted, it was quiet. That just like the OM3, it was pretty quiet. Like no one saw that camera coming. Same thing in the L10. Nobody really saw that coming. An ATR bear here. It's good morning and good morning, Jesse. Good to see you. Or Hesse. No, it's Jesse. Jesse Espinoza. Okay, so Thomas says the view screen on my EM10 Mark II just started blacking out when tilted up. Down works fine. Is there a change or hack, or is it malfunctioning? It's malfunctioning. It's going to require repair. It's a very common problem. It's something to do with the ribbon cable between the LCD screen and the back of the camera. You could do an L10 unboxing. Yep, I could. I'm surprised at just how many cameras models Panasonic Lumix offers. Yeah, they have a lot. And Robin did a great size comparison on his last stream. I missed that part. I know he talked about it. I didn't think Robin had the camera in hand. Because the problem is the size comparisons, when they measure the depth, they include the lens, right? And then now you're trying to compare an LX100 against a camera body that has no lens, right? If you want to compare it against other cameras, you have to. So what I'm going to do is I have a little caliper, and I'm going to measure the thickness of the body, the thickness of the handle, and then measure the thickness of the lens. And I can kind of approximate, you know, the overall volume of the camera based on that. You know, I don't know calculus, but I can multiply dimensions and do do cylinders, I can calculate volume on cylinders. And I can get pretty close. And if I do the same approach, so if the methodology is the same on the other cameras, it's going to be very, very representative. But the camera doesn't look that big to me. If it's a little smaller than my OM3, great, you know. And Roger says, been to the Indy 500 5 times in the late 70s. Wish I had my current Olympus gear back then. Yeah. And please remember to hit the thumbs up. Oh, thank you. And consider subscribing. I appreciate that, Jeff. And the L10 looks bigger than the OM3. It is not. If you watch Richard Wong's video, like I said, I'm pretty sure he puts it right up. Let me see if I can find it. That's versus the... Oh, maybe not. I could have sworn he put it right next to an OM3. Maybe I'm just imagining that. Yeah, I guess I was imagining it. But anyway, it's not as wide as the OM3, I know that, nor as tall because there's no EVF hump. So it's a little narrower and it's a little bit shorter than an OM3. Noticed a few rants from YouTubers about the N10. Seems a bit unfair. Yes, unless they have the camera in hand. And you know, I'm like I said, I'm a little bit more like Emily in this way. I'm not critical about cameras, right? Or I try not to be. Every now and then something will come out when I'm in a bad mood, but generally speaking, I love all cameras, faults and all. Some things become deal breakers for me. Like I said, I'm not like the GR4 is a fixed lens. The X100V is a fixed, I'm sorry, meant to say fixed focal length. Fixed focal length cameras are generally a deal breaker for me. Like the Q3, Q2. I just could not, you know, I'd rather zoom in, right? I'd like to have the ability to zoom in and out. But if I get it, let's say somebody gave me an X100 I'm not going to say this camera sucks because it doesn't have a zoom lens, right? It is what it is. But that's kind of what you hear sometimes is it doesn't, if the camera doesn't have or meet a certain spec that they were looking for, they're going to say this camera sucks. And that kind of criticism I don't appreciate because that's not what the camera was, you know, that's not how you know, the camera's not for them. It's you know, what can I say? Uh, you know, I was very critical of the S9 because there's no hot shoe, no mechanical shutter. But I don't recall bashing the camera. I'm like, it's just not for me, right? It's basically a video camera. It's not really a photographer camera. It can be used for photography, but it's better suited for videography, given the lack of hot shoe and mechanical shutter. And Marco says, keep blocking ads and YouTube will have to play more and creators get paid less and blocking killing publications like mine. Yeah, I mean, there's no free lunch, right? So I don't mind ads, but you should pause the chat, have ad resume chat. That's an interesting feature. But I don't see the ads when I'm watching or when I'm live streaming, right? I don't know when the ads are going to interrupt me or not. But I could say, yeah, be back right after this. Now, if I started taking sponsorships, because I've turned down so many sponsorships, I remember being invited to Vegas. This was probably a year ago. Um, DJI has offered to send me a drone, uh, plus some number of dollars, and then the only time I took a sponsorship was one time with DxO. Because I do DxO stuff all the time, right? Every week I do a live stream. So I'm like, well, okay, if they want to pay me one time, because I do it for free, right? Effectively, other than the ads that I make, which is like $2. Uh, the so that I did one time take a sponsorship from DxO, but other than that, other than getting free gear, lenses and flashes, uh, I've never been actually paid for a video, right? A video review. But I get offers all the time. They ask me what is my rate, and do I have anyway. It's it's okay. If I really wanted to drive my channel as a business, I would definitely do things very, very differently. But this channel for me is really a way to just kind of hang out with other like-minded people, right? Like today's live stream, and do my best to help as many people as I can. Uh, but if I wanted to run this channel as a business, yeah, I'd be having a video out every week. I'd be taking a lot more sponsorships. Like you'd probably see Squarespace. I remember Squarespace reached out to me. God, what are the other popular ones? Yeah, a lot of these guys, they reach out, just insert 1 minute of this. Here's a script you can use, that kind of thing. And I'm like, it's okay. I don't I don't really need that. Because I just don't treat this channel as a business so much as a way to uh, more as a way to help people that I can. So I do the free editing live streams on Fridays. I do these photo chats with open Q&A on Sundays and Tuesdays. We go online shopping together looking for deals. And I'm not trying to push like a $3,000 or $4,000 camera. I'm like, look, this filter, it's on sale for $10, right? So, I'm trying to find deals for people to get into photography and get gear without having to spend a fortune. And that's what I do on Tuesdays. But anyway, so I just take the reviews with a grain of salt, right? I mean, you have to kind of watch a lot of them and try to get a consensus. And the problem with the way Panasonic did it is basically all people could really do is a preview, right, of the camera. They didn't really get a chance to use it. And so when all the reviews came out on launch day, they were all the same. Just basically a rundown of the spec sheets. If they were really excited about it. How can you not be excited? You get sent to Japan, beautiful country, eating good food. You get a free camera, and you're like, man, this is awesome. Yeah, the whole experience is awesome. But that's gonna uh, influence your thinking about a camera in a lot of ways, subconsciously, because you're having a good experience overall, and you have a camera that I mean, I bought one, right? Or I pre-ordered one, I should say. We'll see when it actually gets here. We'll see. uh, that's when I'll say I got one. But it's supposedly, um, not supposedly, but it looks like a terrific camera. It's going to do things that I can't do with, say, my Deluxe 8 right now. The Deluxe 8 and LX100 have always been like my friends and family type camera, where, when I'm going out with my friends or with my family, we go out to the boat or we go have dinner, go to a small party, birthday party or dance party, whatever. That's the camera I take. I either take the LX100 or the Deluxe 8. And it's great because it has that very bright f1.7 to 2.8 aperture. It works great indoors in low light. Where those cameras are kind of lacking is really in the video, autofocus, and not having eye detect. It it does have eye detect, right? Uh, but it's not great. The autofocus is still the older contrast detect, and when it nails it, it nails it, but it's generally, it's not as, it's a little bit cumbersome to use, right? So getting a camera that has a really good eye detect is going to be great for those friends and family type events, and then taking pictures of my dog Ellie. And also now the video specs have been upped quite a bit. And if it has good autofocus with good video specs, you know, I'm going to be able to capture much better video than I have in the past. Because I've tried that. I went to some dance party. And I was trying to capture things on video, and yeah, it was rough. It was rough. I had to, you know, I had to lock focus, because if I didn't lock the focus, it would kind of drift in and out. And so, you know, the L10 I look at as sort of my friends and family type camera. Now, for my street shooting, the little bit that I do, it's definitely going to be my OM3, right? With an 8mm fisheye lens. You know, that's just the way I like to go out and do street photography. I like really wide, super wide angle to get all of the buildings in, and the people around. I love doing that. And you know, the OM3 will probably be my 80% camera. And then everything else will be lumped into 20% of the time I'll use these other cameras, right? Some months one camera will get more attention than another, but yeah, 80% OM3. And there's nothing that the L10 can do really that the OM3 cannot. You know, video specs aside, the OM3 records great video, right? Uh, you know, usually I just shoot a natural profile in almost full auto when I use the video on the OM3, and and that's because it has decent autofocus and the color science looks good. The L10 is going to have good autofocus, and then I'll just probably shoot the same thing in full auto with a natural profile. But if I wanted to, I could do more, right? And let's see. Imagine the cost of publicity, save the money, and put that into missing things on the camera. Honestly, it's kind of a bargain for them to send out the camera and have, you know, people on YouTube or wherever, whatever. There's multiple platforms. They don't just, you know, I only do YouTube, but there's a lot of people that do TikTok and Instagram and all kinds of other ways to market their product. And I guarantee that the budget that they spent to bring everybody out there for 4 days and give away these cameras is still a fraction of what it would cost for them to market the camera uh, on all of these different social media platforms, let alone, you know, more traditional type media. The social media is much more effective because who else? Just imagine if Panasonic bought like a 10-minute spot on YouTube, what that would cost. Now they got hundreds of people doing, you know, very long videos, longer than 10 minutes in many cases, particularly when they start doing their follow-up review. Uh, it would just cost them a fortune, and they're getting it. So they're getting it, the advertising and marketing on a budget, but their timing is way off. They should have really let people use the camera for a while, because the OM3, when it came out like the L10 about 3 weeks before it was actually available for sale, right? So we had the announcement of the OM3, then we had the launch of when you could actually buy it. But the the announcement, most people got the camera 4 or 5 weeks before it was actually announced. So when we came out and talked about the camera, we could tell you what the OM3 is and what it is not, you know, and with uh, do it with a very high level of confidence because we've had the camera for so long, and we're not in that bubble of, you know, like being in Japan and being around a bunch of other people that are also very enthusiastic and because when you're around other people that are very happy, and generally most creators, they're very they're extroverts in general, right? And they're very happy-go-lucky people, and they always approach life and things in life with a very positive attitude. So you throw them into a beautiful country like Japan, give them a free camera and feed them really good food, and you're around a bunch of like-minded people, your energy is going to be really high and your enthusiasm is going to be really high. Uh, and then when you do these previews, that's what happens, and they put themselves in that position, right, to do that. But that's fine. I think really a lot of the, you know, if and when they do a follow-up review, like Emily promised to do one, uh, that's those are the ones where people are going to get a better sense of what the camera, the L10 is and is not. Uh, so, and that's the difference, right? The OM3, by the time everybody started talking about it online on the social media, they could tell you what the camera is and is not, or they should be, right, at that point. And then when people bought the camera, they knew exactly what they were getting. Whereas with the L10, if you're not in this camera world bubble, uh, you're gonna go off the enthusiasm and excitement that they had in the preview, and the people that are gonna be upset are gonna be people like us that are already in that bubble and know, wanted certain things or had certain expectations about the camera, and it didn't meet those expectations. Everybody has different expectations, right? But anyway, if they're giving trips to the reviewer, I'm already suspect. Yeah, I wouldn't be so suspect. I mean, it's nice when companies do that, but it's definitely for them, for the company, it's very cheap advertising. No, not in hand, just looking at specs. Okay. It's good to have choices. It's a take it or leave it proposition. And Adam says, we greatly appreciate that you don't monetize, but could you do it in a way that creates an income stream worth the effort it would take? It would become work instead of enjoyment for you. Um, but could you do it in a way that creates an income stream worth the effort? Uh, I don't know. I don't think about it that much. Sorry, one second. Sorry, I have to get this. Sorry about that. It's my mom. I have to answer because she's 83 years old, but on top of that, she recently had a major health incident. So, uh, I can't not answer the phone. Anyway, 99 month is why Rob is the only membership I have. Yeah. Like I said, I started the membership just because everybody was asking me, why don't you have a membership? You should get one. And I said, okay, I'll put one out there. And I just put 99 cents. Um, Same for me. That was a no brainer. And I don't really offer any additional perks when you're a member, right? I don't like release videos early, members only. I thought about it. I'm always doing my best every time when I'm online. And those of you that appreciate that and want to support that, that's what the membership is for, really. Uh, but I always, I'm not like someone was complaining that, you know, channels that just become members only, and they're not much use to people that are not members, right? But and I don't want to do that. I've always been quote unquote a free resource, right, on here on YouTube. And I make a few bucks off the ads. Like I said, typical stream depends, right? Anywhere from like $2 to $10, depending on what it is. Like the last stream I made, the on the where I spent 3 hours talking about autofocus for birds, right? Settings on the OM1 for birds. I think that's almost up to $9 at this point. uh, and that's fine. And Marco says, man, I have a completely different view of travel and briefings than reviewing gear, having it done for 30 years. Travel is a pain in the ass, and the hours required for deep dive review would cost a hell of a lot more than most of the products. Yes. So that's what I said in near the beginning, is like it can make sense for some people and not others. For me, if I was offered that, I wasn't. But if I was offered that, I'd probably take it if I could. I cannot because of, I have my dog Ellie, I have my mom, here, I need to be here to take care of them. But I would be very tempted, very, very tempted. I'm like, you know, why not spend 4 days and get a free camera and then talk about it? If I buy the camera, I'm going to do that anyway. Why not get a trip and get the camera for free? Um, and I've said this a lot of times. The 8 or 9 years I've been doing this before OM Systems took over, and when it was Olympus, uh, I thought about it. I was like, why would Olympus pay me anything when I'm doing everything for free anyway, right? um, so, and more recently, I've turned down. You may have noticed I haven't had too many reviews on products lately, like flashes and lenses and things. Uh, I've done a handful this year, but not like it was for a little while. Um, it's because I just started turning them down. Like I said, like Marco says, on a much smaller scale, they send me this $150 lens or $100 flash or $50 flash. Sometimes it's like a $50 flash, uh, or $75, whatever. Like the IT30, I think it was. Um, these are $75 to $100 flashes, and I'm doing like these full-on videos. I made 4 or 5 videos about the one. I can't remember the name of it. Uh, Showing how to use it, how to set it up, things like that, right? And I spent hours and hours. Never mind the experience I have using Flash that goes into creating these videos, which is years of experience, right? The time you put in to actually produce the video, it works out that like, well, way, just nothing. Pennies on the hour. It's nothing. I easily spent 100 hours reviewing $100 flash, so like $1 an hour. And I think I got back the ad revenue off that was maybe $10 or $15. Let me look real quick. It's not much. The IT32. The initial review, $18 I made. And I maybe sold 4 or 5 of the IT32s on the affiliate, but that's even less. That's probably $3 or $4 there. And then I did 2 follow-up videos showing how to set it up. That made 29, and this one made $8. So 28 plus 18 is 46, plus another $5. So 50 bucks I made. I made 50 bucks producing 3 videos for $100 flash. So I'm in the whole 50 bucks. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm in the whole 50 bucks basically. I didn't recoup the $100 worth that I got from getting the flash or whatever. Anyway, nobody really cares. Do you guys really care how much I make off, you know, a video or doing a review? It's not important, you know. So I did like Petapixel's review of the L10. It was balanced. I get, for example, Emily being excited for a new camera. Presentation still matters. You're talking to possible investors to the camera. OM marketing seems better. I was shocked when you got the OM3 and the review was professional, calm, and informative. Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. Like I said, Emily gets excited about everything. I love her enthusiasm. I don't fault her for it. And I don't criticize it because you know, she's such a good person. And then the OM system needs to bring up smaller camera than the L10 with image stabilization, interchangeable lens. Maybe a small Pen F style camera would be more wanted, possibly. And that's my question is, you know, we as photographers, you know, and I'm gonna say we're more, I would say more like the enthusiast photographer, somebody with a little more experience. Yeah, we've been clamoring for a Pen F Mark II, right? And we got an OM3 instead. What is it in the marketing or thinking of a camera company when they decide to start to develop a new camera? Because it's certainly in OM Systems cases, certainly nobody asked for an OM3, right? Generally speaking, that I'm aware of. We were all asking for a Pen F Mark II. So there's something else going on there in their decision-making process that they decided the OM3 would a better way to go than a Pen F Mark II. So I don't know. Sorry, I wouldn't trust George Washington himself if they are giving free trips to Japan. I wouldn't worry about it. Like I said, I'd probably go. I'd probably go if I didn't have some roots here that I couldn't leave. It says, I watched them give Frono's photo a trip to one of the cameras and he did not hesitate to rip it and they never did anything again for OM Systems. And then never did. Of course he hates Micro Four Thirds, yeah. That was pretty brave of OM Systems to ask Fro. And Fro actually did the best review on it. He was super critical and he hates Micro Four Thirds. He, you know, but the way the OM3 was, the perception I got about the OM3 when it came out is it was there to try to convert full frame sports action photographers to use Micro Four Thirds, the M1X. That's the camera that Fro reviewed, was the M1X. And I said, you know, maybe that's why they asked Fro, because they know Fro is a full frame guy, right? So maybe that's why they asked Fro, because they're trying to reach that market and try to convert full frame system users to, you know, that are doing sports action into the Micro Four Thirds world. And I'm like, wow, okay. And if Fro liked the camera, they would have succeeded. They would have succeeded if Fro liked the camera. They would have definitely gotten a lot of positive press. But if Fro didn't like it, they're not going to, you know, all I can say is if the Fro liked, if he ended up liking the EM1X and recommending it, I think that's what OM Systems was, or Olympus was hoping for. Uh, then I would say, yeah, Micro Four Thirds could potentially replace a lot of full frame professionals, right? But uh, Fro didn't like it, and they're not going to convert any full frame uh, professionals to Micro Four Thirds. Just can't. They they're not going to do it with the EM1X anyway, and they didn't. But I liked Fro's review, uh, even though most of his deal breaker type things wouldn't apply to me. But yeah, it's been a while since I've seen that review. But I thought he did a decent job, and it was fair because he's coming at it from the perspective of a full frame sports action guy, right? So he's looking for that depth of field and separation of subjects that way, and clearly Micro Four Thirds is not going to do that. And he wasn't impressed enough by the autofocusing and the subject detect because the M1X I think was one of the first cameras to do that, if not the first. He wasn't impressed by that. Yeah, so it didn't anyway. Um, so yeah, sending you need to send your cameras out to the right audience, and that was the big problem with the S9. They sent an S9 out to a bunch of photographers. The S9 is not a photographer's camera. And they sent it out to a bunch of photographer YouTubers. And yeah, that was a mistake. They need to send it out to a bunch of TikTokers and video centric people. And one of your photos was on Lisa Tom's live stream yesterday. It was a square pad lock with ICM. Well, oh, thanks. Yeah, I remember that. um, that's cool. And Heather says, maybe I missed the answer earlier. Is bulb live comp used for moving clouds during the day? Uh, no, not, yeah, live comp. Yeah, you can use live comp, certainly. But you have to put like a 10 stop, not a 10 stop, well, yeah, like a 10 stop ND filter in front of the camera. Then you can do it. Because daytime is bright, right? And live comp, the fastest shutter speed is uh, half a second. So you have a 1/2 second shutter speed. You have to use an ND filter. So if you use an ND filter, you can use live comp. And I added what memberships I would have for both of my channels. Okay. And Shri says, oh no, that's a good video. We need more hits. Any thoughts on the Laowa 4.5 to f2.8 CF zoom fisheye lens? Looks like a fun lens. So I watched Jimmy's review of it, and he seems to think it's just as sharp as the 8mm f1.8 Pro, right? And I think the price point is what, $400 for that lens? So being able to zoom in and out from 4.5 to 10 certainly gives you a lot of versatility for a wide angle lens. And I like that part of it. F2.8 is not quite fast enough though, if you want to use it for like Astro. I mean, you can do Astro with F2.8, surely, right? But I would say that was a little bit of a weakness, but that's the compromise that you get with a zoom lens, right? To have a constant f2.8. So I don't know. If you're really into circular fisheye photography, and if it's as sharp as Jimmy was saying, then it makes sense at $400 because you can be doing circular fisheye photography that's sharp and with a reasonable aperture of f2.8 and then having the ability to zoom. Me personally, I don't think you really need a tack sharp lens when you're doing fisheye photography. I mean, those are just kind of fun pictures to take. Because I have a 4mm fisheye lens that I use once in a blue moon. This one here. So you can do some fun stuff with it. Like here's a live comp star trails, and the this is one of my favorite images. I mean, I'm probably standing maybe 4 or 5 feet away from the tree, and yet and this is not a tack sharp lens. This is a decent lens, but this thing is, how much is this thing? This is 100. You can get it used for $100, right? So and it's an f2.8. I feel like if you want a fisheye lens, just buy a fisheye lens. But that versatility of being able to zoom out to 10 is pretty nice. But I don't know if it's worth an extra $300 to do that. At least it wouldn't be for me. About $350 for my musical channel, about $600 for photo stuff per year. Okay. And video has ruined the compact camera. These newer sensors generate so much more heat when using video, so they literally can't make them physically smaller without issues. That's definitely a big role. If they have to have video, they're definitely gonna have to do some kind of heat management. And this side towards screen says, just need a Rob Trek merch shop. Someone keeps asking me for that. It's probably you. Camera bags, coffee mugs, stickers, lens clothes, branded Rob Trek. Need a mascot too. No, I'm not gonna do merch. Cause some merch company reached out to me, and a lot of YouTubers have used this merch company. But I'm like, my God, like $40 for a sweatshirt. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if I could do that. And have you ever used a rubber lens hood that fits most lenses? Appear to be a great for lightening the load in my backpack. I've never used one. Um, and Barry's here says, hello, Robin, everyone from rather warm Swindon, UK, about 82 degrees Fahrenheit. It won't last. Wow, that's awesome. It's not our business what you make, but it's a good wake-up call for people who think YouTube people are making a killing. Yeah, off the ad revenue, not so much, right? But when you start doing sponsorships and things like that, you can make some decent money. I mean, if you do like James Pops, is almost every single one of his videos are MPB or Squarespace, things like that. Emily does a lot of sponsorships on products. And yeah, when you start doing that, like if you make a sponsored video every week and you get minimum $500, okay, let me tell you, minimum 500, but could be $1,000 to $2,000. You do that once a week. You can make a decent living off YouTube. What really is funny now is watching all the creators that were super produced and polished now race to change their format to casual and real conversational format. Um, yeah, I think the most important thing is authenticity and integrity, right? If For me anyway. But that's really the most important thing. If you're going to run your channel as a business, something's got to give, you know, because ultimately, especially early on, but once you've kind of established yourself, you don't have to give up your integrity or uh, authenticity whenever you do sponsorships and things. But with the advent of all this AI content out there and the effort it takes to make a very highly polished production, uh, it's just not worth it. It's easier. Like, since COVID, I've cut way back on the number of videos I did. I was kind of forced into it because of COVID, right? I used to vlog a lot more before that. But live streams generally are very low effort. I just turn the camera on, talk for a couple of hours, and I'm done. And I don't have to do anything else. When I make a video, there's a lot of research that goes up first, a lot of prep, and then a lot of editing, and a lot of, just it's a lot of work. I mean, it's usually 2-3 days minimum to make a 10-minute video. Never mind traveling out to locations if you want to get some footage using the lens or camera or whatever. It's so much work. And then to try to make it polished on top of that. Oh, God. I guess maybe I'm just getting lazy in my old age. I don't know. With Emily, she actually does love and have enthusiasm for cameras she has. I do like when she follows up down the road to see what her experience is over time. Yeah, she will. She'll come back and do her follow-up review. And she may even do another follow-up review a year later. You never know. But yeah, I don't question Emily's integrity. I think her enthusiasm just is just so up there. She's a tough act to follow, and she has very polished videos. I just love Emily. And thank you so much for the extra half cup of coffee. Thank you. Really appreciate the support from my members and from the super chats and everything. There's a reason why Flow lifts. Yep. And Hiker Dude, how are you? He says, hi Rob, do you think the L10 will attract new users to the M43 world? Seems a bit expensive to entice younger folks away from just using their phones. Yeah, I don't think it'll introduce new users to the M43 world because it's not an interchangeable lens camera. Just because it uses a micro four thirds sensor. So yeah, short answer is no. And as far as trying to attract younger buyers, it would depend if it goes viral or not. Because look at the X100VI. Apparently, that has a huge TikTok young person, whatever, following, and a lot of young people buy that camera despite its price. And Chuck says, I took my full frame on a trip through Arizona. Man, Micro Four Thirds is so much better for travel. Absolutely. Gear gets the views, photo walks sure don't. That's true. And you do a lot of photo walks, especially with Jerry back in the day. Yeah, again, I'm so sorry for your loss there. Jerry was Robert's little dog. I, of course, have Ellie. But yeah, I know what you mean. Because, YouTube has kind of become a go-to place for people to look for reviews and make purchasing decisions. So naturally, YouTube is going to push those kinds of videos out more and give them more exposure. So ultimately, they get more views and there's more people looking for those kind of videos. It just, just how it works. YouTube is not really the best platform for education, right? I could certainly make a series of videos to do a full educational content, but it generally wouldn't do very well. I heard you only make $1 or $2 off shirts and merch. I think it's a little more than that. Honestly, I think it's closer to 20%. I don't remember. Whatever this merch person was offering, it was pretty attractive, but then I looked at the pricing and I was like, oh, man, who's going to buy that? Just a handful of people. And then I'm cluttering up my descriptions and videos with merch advertising. And Adam says, after using my APS-C Fujifilm camera, I have discovered two things. One, yes, it's better image quality. However, all of the features and speed or my base and Pro Ollie OM gear allows me better images. Yeah, well, give it some time. I was really happy with the images that I got from my XT30. And I wouldn't say that it's any better or worse than Micro Four Thirds when it comes to just sheer image quality. But when you obviously your Micro Four Thirds gear much better. It's a much more intuitive camera to use. The menu systems and everything. They really, really did a good job with OM Systems, Olympus. The overall camera layout in the menu system. Even the older menu system, I thought was fine. You're going to take better pictures when you know your gear. So when I say give it time, I would say once you get to know your Fuji a little better, you should get equally as good a picture out of it. But you're talking more about the workflow is slower, right? Yeah, same here. My Fuji kit is staying home more and more. Yep. Honest review for the 14mm f4. Have not. Have I reviewed that lens? Let me see. I did review that lens. So you can watch my review. If you're making a statement, I did an honest review. I appreciate that. If you're asking me to do an honest review, I already did one. Let me see if I can pull up the link. All right. There you go. And Adam says, I greatly appreciate that you do these live streams. I do wish OM System will give you all gear access to get you to make their US-based education videos. Yeah. And what is the difference between the 100 to 400 and 100 to 400 Mark II? Primarily, it's the image stabilization is now synced better in the Mark II. So I think that's more important for video work. If you're doing video with the Mark II, with the 100 to 400, then the Mark II will give you better stabilization for video. For photography, it doesn't matter so much, particularly in sports, action, wildlife, because you're at such high shutter speeds anyway, typically 1/2000 to 1/3000, that kind of thing. The other thing is they said that they improved the coatings so that you get a little better contrast. That might be worth it enough right there if you're very critical about your images. So it should give you slightly better contrast and better image stabilization overall. That's the main difference. For the most part, I tell people just buy the 100 to 400 Mark I and save $500, right? Typically, I see a $500 gap because the image stabilization and that tiny bit of extra contrast you may or may not get. I don't know if that's worth the $500 difference. And to get youngsters to get the camera needs to be small and almost zero friction to get them to social post. Also sub 1000, attractive and fast boot up. My late teeners love the old TG cam. Oh, interesting. With a flip screen. Yep. And Paul is here. Hi, Rob. I didn't elaborate why I've been using my G9 II lately. I've been getting a lot of out of focus shots and bursts with my OM1 Mark II, 150 to 400. Turned off IBIS and reduced focus zone from all. Okay. So I'd be interested. So you say the G9 II seems to lock on and produce more hits. Interesting. I mean, I don't know what my hit rate is because it does vary quite a bit. Sometimes I get amazing hit rate with the burst shots, and then sometimes it's way off, right? Typically, what I noticed was egrets. Egrets, the OM1 Mark, my OM1 Mark 1 struggles actually quite a bit with egrets. I do get a sharp shot out of a sequence of burst, but yeah, there'll be a lot of drift in and out. The only other thing I can suggest is make sure you have your sensitivity turned down. So once it gets a lock on the subject, it's not going to try to jump off of that subject too quickly. If you have your sensitivity set to +1 or +2, whatever the max is, try doing the opposite. I just have mine set to 0, but I think in theory, if you were to try the sensitivity down, turn it down so it stays locked on the subject, that may be better. But it's very hard for me to duplicate tests to figure out what would work better. So I mean, after a while, really good buy or not. So that was in reference, to the 14 millimeter. Let me see how much it cost real quick. 199. I would say no. It's $199, right? For 14 millimeter f4. But this is a full frame lens. So that, yeah, I'm used to reviewing APS-C lenses, but this is a full frame. If you're talking about for a Fuji mount, then no. If you're talking, I can't remember. What camera are you thinking about putting this on? I think for full frame, 199 is okay. Let me see what else is out there real quick. So there's that. There's a manual focus. And 14 is pretty wide on a full frame camera. Okay, there's an 18 1.7, but that's APS-C. Let me look at one more thing, and I'll give you a more definitive answer here. Okay. Wow. Okay, I'm going to have to say it's definitely worth it. There's just nothing else like it that I can find. So I'm just kind of skimming this, right? So here's a 11 to 20 f2.8, $659, and it's not, so, and that's APS-C. That's not even full frame. This is a full frame lens from Sony that would cover it, but Yeah, it's 4 times the price. Here's a 20 millimeter. This is a APS-C lens. Here's a full frame. So I don't see anything else like it for full frame. Okay. So it looks like a decent buy for a full frame 14 millimeter, because that's a super wide angle lens. And f4 is not bad. And Adam says, I have the XT32. Maybe I am conflating better IQ with different IQ, not giving up on the Fuji, just slow to write, and the dials and buttons, of course, confound me. Customizations on OM spoils us, yeah. Yeah, I never liked my XT30. That's why I got rid of it. I like my XH2 much better, though. And OM1 is not hugely out of focus, just not tack sharp, which is really, yeah, annoying. I know exactly what you mean. I'm just getting those, like, very, very uh, micro, it's just off by a little bit. I know what you mean. Thanks, Rob. By the way, I'm in Northeast Maryland, about 10 miles from Conowingo. Oh, that's cool. Wow, you must go there a lot. Or I would if I lived 10 miles from it. So I was surprised how lightning quick my OM5s were last time out. I must have changed something for the better. Yep. So I'll give sensitivity a try. Just checked and I'm set to +2. So yeah, try like -2. And then the G9 Mark II may be slower to acquire the subject, but once locked on, it's very high hit rate on the eye. Interesting. I noticed with ducks, I have pretty good luck when I'm photographing ducks. And blue herons, I have pretty good luck. What else is out there that I do? But I know what you mean. I'm certainly not getting 100% lock on the eye. If I get 50%, I'm pretty happy. But sometimes I get better. I get 80, 90% hit rate. Uh, Other times I get less than 50. But it really depends on the bird sometimes. A lot of times it depends on what the bird is. I know egrets is definitely a problem. Maybe because they're all white and the subject to tech just doesn't like all white birds. I don't know. Okay. I think I kept my 14 millimeter f4. It was a decent lens. If I remember though, the biggest problem I had with it was probably the flaring, right? A lot of flaring. Meaning like if you were shooting it directly into a light source, there'd be a lot of glare and it would be very soft and hazy. But that's very typical of 7 Artisan lenses. All right. Okay, let me show you a couple of pictures real quick. Because I didn't get a chance to share these last week, and this is a set that I took this morning. I'll publish this on my Flickr page. I just did it this morning. I didn't get a chance to upload it yet. But over here I have the K3 Mark III monochrome, the OM3 in just monochrome 1, which is just a straight conversion from color to black and white. And then the Deluxe 8, and then the LX100 Mark II. And I would say the OM3 is the one that has the biggest difference, right? It has the most contrast, so it's a little bit punchier. And, you know, I put the color here in the middle just so you get an idea. But this shirt is what, red and blue stripes, and then kind of a taupe color vest. But you can see the color response between the two cameras is quite different. Let me see if I can make this a little smaller. Whereas the color response here, you know, this is a little bit brighter on the Deluxe 8. It's a little darker on the K3. And what surprised me is the LX100 is a little bit darker. So I'm going to have to do this test a little bit more. This is just an initial one that I tried this morning. But it's interesting to see. But like I was saying in my stream from a few weeks ago, the tonality here is definitely different. I didn't really miss focus on this shot. It was just that I was shooting wide open on a 50mm 1.4. So the lens has a little bit of bloom to it. So I'm going to have to stop the lens down a little bit next time so you can see the difference. So I tried to shoot everything wide open. So the Deluxe 8 and the LX100 were at f2.8. The Olympus, the OM3 was at f1.4 as well as the K3 at 1.4. Okay, so there's that. And then this shot here, I don't know if you guys saw this one. Give it a second. Hard drive has to spin up. And I didn't get a chance to show you guys my Warbler pictures, so I'll share a couple of those. So this is where I was standing, way in the back here. And then I was taking pictures of my nephew here walking up to get his diploma. And I used the OM3 with the 40-150 kit lens. But I also took a picture using my Samsung Galaxy S22, but I had to use the maximum zoom that it had. And you can see it's a humongous difference from where I was sitting. Remember, I was sitting way in the back here. And to get basically the same shot, I was at 150mm f5.6 on the OM3. And you can see there's no comparison between the two shots. And the one on the left was, you know, I processed this with DxO. But you can clearly read Stevenson University here, whereas over here it's just a white line, right, or a gold line. And the colors are just awful too. So there's that. And then this is the raw image straight out of camera without processing. So you can see, you know, all the noise and everything here. And then this is just a close-up between the raw image and an image processed by DxO. And then this one here is a wide angle shot. So the one on top is my OM3. Excuse me. The one on the bottom is my Samsung Galaxy phone. It had a little wider field of view. But again, the colors just look kind of mushy on the Samsung Galaxy phone. Whereas I really like the colors and everything on the OM3 up top. And I was using, in this case, I was using the 14-42 kit lens. Okay, and then let's see, there was some Warbler stuff. This one I did a little processing. I made a black background. But these were all with my OM1 and 300mm f4 Pro. Because I don't think I got a chance to share these. Now this bird, it's a towhee. God, he just flew right on a branch right in front of me. And I had to back up to get anything in frame. That bird just landed right in front of me. So that's why it's cropped the way it is. Terrible picture, but I got it. I got one. This little wren and just some EXIF data. This is an ISO 20,000, okay? ISO 20,000 with DxO, but it did a really good job here bringing out the details. It's pretty amazing. This one didn't come out so great. This is an ISO 3200, but it was really heavily backlit. And this one is a robin. This one is at ISO 12,800. These are relatively simple shots. Here's one at ISO 10,000. It's a female cardinal. This is the same warbler. I don't know what kind of warbler this is. This is at ISO 12,800. This one's at ISO 25,000. So the light was pretty low because I was working in the shade. This one's at ISO 3200. This is, I forget what this is called, but it's another warbler. And that's the warbler taking off. And there he is taking off on another branch. I think it's the same bird. Yep, meaning the same exact bird, not just the same species. And yep, another warbler. Another one. This one it misfocused a little bit, so I really over sharpened it. But it came out okay. This one's pretty good. ISO 8000. This one is not so much. I don't know. I don't like this shot. I cropped in quite a bit too. This one's pretty good. He's eating an ant or something. But it's another warbler. This place is kind of known for warblers. They're probably gone now, but for a small window of about 2 weeks, you can get a lot of warblers in this particular area. And I think, oh, I like this one. Yeah, this is a really pretty bird. This is from a different day or something. Anyhow, yep, that was it. So those are my bird shots from a week ago or so, a little over a week. Let me show you one more. This one here is one I took a couple of weeks ago. May, well, the date will be in the EXIF data. When was this taken? April 27th. So yeah, it's been almost a month. The difference with this image is I processed this using Workspace. So I didn't use DxO noise reduction or anything. I just used Workspace. I used Workspace as noise reduction. Not that there's much noise in this image. It's an ISO 800. But it's okay. It's okay. Nothing special, but I kind of like the shot and I processed it in DxO. But that's all I've really had time to do is just those few things and then some things this morning. And puffins are back in Canada. Oh, okay. Puffins are really pretty birds. And there are icebergs up in the Great Northern Peninsula off St. Anthony, Newfoundland. Okay. And Rob, where do you buy Rob Trek autograph? Yeah. No, not for sale. And I don't know, the Alex and the Leica look pretty good. Yep, not bad. And I can save this for your photo stream, but are you using the highest level noise reduction in Photolab? And how are you tweaking force details? Default setting seems to make subjects plasticky. So no, I typically just use the 40% default setting, and it really depends shot to shot. Sometimes I do tweak the sliders for details and the other things. I forget what's in there. Where you need to be more careful with is these settings over here, lens sharpness optimization. This has really a lot of this, and the unsharp mask down here. This really has a lot of effect on the how plasticky things can start to look, as much as the noise reduction percentage that you use. So once you've gotten the noise reduction to where you want it, you know, go in and tweak the lens sharpness optimization and see if that improves sort of that plasticky look that you get. I tend to over sharpen a bit, which is just as bad as getting that plasticky look. But that's those settings do have a pretty big impact. Anthony says Olympus introduced their first camera in September of 1936, so probably not see an announcement of a new camera lens until September. Maybe. I don't know what the release schedule is. And the Semi Olympus, the first camera they introduced, came out in September. Okay. I think we just typed that again. What do you think would be the most important camera for OM System to introduce in September this year for their anniversary? Pen F or OM1 Mark III? I don't know. If they introduce a Pen F, and if they introduce Pen F anytime, I don't think it matters about the anniversary. I'm not tied to anniversaries for camera releases. Like look at Leica. Didn't Leica release a 100-year anniversary? All it was the Deluxe 8 with a silver ring on it. I mean, it depends what the cameras have on them. If they make significant improvements, yeah, I'm just not linking anniversaries with releases of cameras. Those two things just seem disconnected to me. I can't like the L10 is supposed to be some release with some anniversary Panasonic has, 25-year or something, or 30-year. I don't know what it was. They shouldn't attach camera releases together with their anniversary, so to speak, unless it's a really good camera. But either one, doesn't matter to me what they release. Just release something, right? Rob, just out of interest, what percent of your shots are you happy with straight out of camera? Oh, if we're talking about birding, none. I have to process every single one because there's usually a lot of noise. If we're talking about our street photography, I could be happy with almost all of them, right? I could have a very high percentage of keepers straight out of camera, but I can't help myself to process them and just tweak them a little bit here and there. So in reality, in practice, I would say probably less than 10% I'm happy with straight out of camera. But if I were to show straight out of camera shots, like posted those without any editing, they're not bad. They're not bad, just straight out of camera. Because because I try to get my framing and composition right in camera. To me, that's the most important thing, and exposure. I do as much as I can correct in camera, and if I feel like using an art filter, that's when I usually use the straight out of camera stuff. But not too often. Not too often do I uh, just post an image straight out of camera anymore. I used to do that a lot because, like I said, I always try to get my exposure and composition right, and then going into post-processing is usually just tweaks, right? Cropping in if it's a bird, and if it's a street shot, usually deciding if I want to do vertical or horizontal lands, uh, that kind of thing. But I never have to tweak in post-processing exposure so much. I'm usually within a half a stop, if not spot on, with the exposure that I want. I think there are a lot of photographers out there that would like to see an all-new, smaller, lighter Pen F with built-in image stabilization and weatherproofing. There could be. I mean, just having a rangefinder, weather sealed, you're talking about but I just don't know what's it going to cost, right? Everybody says they want something until they see the price. It's like, oh, well, yeah, maybe not. They are awesome shots. I missed out on the warblers. Yeah, I know. The time to go is during the week when we're working, right? Luckily, I can get out during the work week. Do you use ProCapture SH2 much? Yes, I do use it quite a bit when I want to capture the bird jumping off the stick. So like the warbler shots I just showed were definitely ProCapture. Your picture of the Alexandria power plant, is that considered industrial photography? I guess. Yeah. Industrial, architectural. Anthony says the information they have sent out earlier this year seems to me that they are having big things happening on their anniversary. I could be reading too much. Yeah. Reading into it too much. Yeah, I agree. I mean, look at Panasonic's launch of the L10. I mean, to me, that is just a normal release type camera, like something new and pretty exciting, but that's not like anniversary level, right? The head guy at OM bought controlling interest. Yeah, that's what I heard. He did buy controlling interest of OM Systems. So he has the final say in all of the decisions that they decide to make. Hopefully I mean, that's always a good sign, right? That you believe in your product and your company and what you're doing, that you want to own a majority share of it. Because who would know better than that person, right? So that was good news in my opinion. So yeah, I don't know. Um, the September anniversary, if they were founded in 1936, I mean the 100-year anniversary is not for another 10 years. So this would be their what 90th anniversary. So I think it would be better to release some cosmetic changes to cameras to reflect the 90th anniversary. I don't think they're ready for a really huge game-changing camera yet. I just don't think they have one in development yet. Even if they came out with a Pen F Mark II, right? And then badged it with some 90th anniversary colors or uh, engravings, whatever, to signify that it's a 90th anniversary edition, that would be okay. I would go for that instead of an OM1 Mark III. The OM1 Mark III, I mean, the OM1 series in general is a workhorse camera. You know, I don't think that would be as exciting as a Pen F Mark II that came out as a 90th anniversary camera. Uh, just my opinion. So to answer your earlier question, I guess I would say a Pen F Mark II would be a much more interesting and exciting release as a 90th anniversary camera, but it better be good. Like you said, weather sealing's a big deal, and obviously image stabilization, it's already got that. To make it a little smaller, I don't think is necessary. The Pen F is already pretty small. So, okay, I'm going to call it here. So you guys, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. Um, as always, I'm a little tired today, so I'm not having, I'm always laid back, but I'm a little more laid back today than usual. But thanks again for joining me today. I hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend. Have a great week. I'll be back on Tuesday for my shopping stream, so join me there. Um, and